Oh, hi again. Welcome back from the ads and things. Cody, news guy. Ties, beards. Did we do this part already? Sorry, I'm a little distracted because I ordered something I really need, and it says it's 9 stops away, but it said that for the last like 3 hours. Whatever, it's still fine. I can't complain, right? Everything is so convenient these days. Thank you, capitalist Mr. Clean. Hot dog! It is now 8 stops away. Cool. We really are finally living in the rad future that we were promised. A world where we can get anything we want with a touch of a button. Groceries, rides, late night booze, laundry detergent, a Super Mario DVD, I'm not sure which one, and a guy who will pay cash for your old lottery tickets. I don't know why. It was an intriguing ad and he responded very quickly. Pretty soon, you won't even have to press a button anymore. You will press a button to press the button for you. Oh wait, we did that too. It truly is a time of wonders. But hey, here's some news. Oh, hold on. 9 stops away? Again? The high cost of modern convenience. Well, while we're waiting, there's really nothing else to do but like this video and subscribe to our channel, please. Anyway, look, I'm not against convenience. I love convenience. Some of my best friends are extremely convenient. But in the wacky world of corporations, convenience always comes at a price. And we know it. Workers get exploited, companies dodge responsibility, and customers get fleeced, if not put in harm's way. And that's what today is about. There is an arms race of various tech companies pushing to disrupt every industry in the name of convenience, which we've allowed to thrive because, for the most part, they do seem really convenient. You know, as long as we don't mind the occasional burst of terror and pain. Like, wow, an app that sends a taxi right to your door? That's really convenient. Will those drivers occasionally assault people? Yeah. Both Uber and Lyft have dealt with this issue, which is ongoing. For example, last year on what was supposed to be a routine trip home from a Denver co-working space, Colorado State Representative Jenny Wilford was picked up by a Lyft driver who wasn't the man in the driver's profile. During that ride, Wilford says she was sexually assaulted. Eventually, she got out of the car and walked to a different location so the driver wouldn't know where she lived. All of Lyft's drivers are supposed to be vetted, but sometimes they super are not. According to the details of the lawsuit, a company called Shawn Transportation created a Lyft account for one of its cars, then handed access to that account to other drivers who never went through Lyft's background checks or the driver qualification process. So a middleman to a middleman was added to the process, resulting in an unvetted driver behind the wheel when Wilford stepped into her Lyft ride. And again, this is one of way too many examples of this. Surely the company is aware of this issue and working diligently on a fix, you might be saying. And let me assure you, who might be saying that, the answer is a firm, sort of. Lyft's big fix for this extremely ongoing problem was the Women Plus Connect feature. More stuff! I love it when they plus a thing. It's a toggle that lets women and non-binary riders match with women and non-binary drivers. And sure, that sounds like a step in the right direction. Men are statistically the problem with this kind of stuff. And Lyft's CEO even pitched it as empowerment. Now, women can earn money on their terms. Problem is, Lyft doesn't have to give you a driver if none are available. So even if you use this feature, there's a good chance you'll end up with a male driver anyway. Plus, both passengers and drivers are pointing out that this solution might actually make things less safe for them. See, because Lyft and Uber don't verify anyone's identities when you sign in, a female driver might get matched with a female passenger who is actually just a guy using his girlfriend's account, possibly with worse intentions than just avoiding surge pricing, and vice versa. I mean, I just pointed out that a person was assaulted by someone using another person's account, which is the actual problem. So it's essentially a placebo button, and not one that gets you a ride with the band, which is probably good, who wants that? But also, this is worse, because it's basically a big sign that says, "Here be all the women!" And while Lyft's PR says Women Plus Connect will give riders and drivers more choice, longtime drivers point out that female riders were already doing this on their own by canceling trips until a female driver showed up. And all of this is layered on top of a reality where, as one Chicago driver bluntly put it, people doing rideshare have no presumption of safety. Hey, that could be their new slogan. Obviously, it's not just ride shares. The same issues are present in every popular convenience service. Airbnb, to name one, is the crown jewel of the convenience economy. Millions of listings, 275 million users, and over $11 billion in revenue last year. But of course, they're able to do that by sidestepping all the regulations that make hotels safe and accountable. No front desk, no security, no housekeeping staff. Accountability is essentially replaced with vibe checks and crossing your fingers that the owner isn't a barbarian, like the barbarian from Barbarian. And sex pests abound. Airbnb has spent an average of $50 million a year to settle claims ranging from wrecked homes to sexual assaults, including one case where a man used a copied house key to enter a rented unit and attack the guest inside. In Fort Lauderdale, a woman hired to clean an Airbnb was violently attacked by an intruder while she was on the job. She filed a lawsuit against the company and the hosts for failing to implement basic security, arguing that the owners were aware of previous break-ins and that the platform left her exposed to violence just by showing up to work. I'm no lawyer, despite what my Trump University degree says. Law knower guy. But it seems like she has a pretty strong case. Airbnb is also jacking up local economies, and not in a good way like Wheeljack, in a bad way like Gunjack. Short-term rentals have hammered local housing markets around the world, causing many places to enact laws to protect citizens and communities. Dallas is trying to block short-term rentals in some neighborhoods. San Francisco and Seattle capped listings per host, and cities like London and Paris limit how many nights a property can be rented out. Barcelona even went so far as to ban private room rentals entirely after years of climbing rents, anti-tourism protests, and neighborhoods getting hollowed out into D-list celebrity birthday parties for the weekend. See, because cities zone for hotels, they are a commercial property. But Airbnb breaks that and turns what should be housing into unofficial, unsanctioned businesses. And that's, confusing, on top of hurting the rental market. In fact, the Economic Policy Institute found that Airbnb's economic downsides often far exceed its supposed perks. Sure, it boosts short-term lodging supply and may slightly lower prices, but housing prices skyrocket as the housing supply drops because units that used to be long-term rentals are changed to short-term Airbnb listings. Researchers looked at what actually happens when Airbnb activity doubles in a neighborhood and found it increases housing prices by 6 to 11%. That's your rent eating another whole paycheck to finance the passive income of a digital landlord, which is nowhere near as cool a phrase as it should have been. Digital landlord should have been what the lawnmower man forced us all to call him in his server churches. Instead, it's some yahoo rolling Bitcoin dice on a neighborhood to the immediate detriment of everyone living there. A study of New York City found that from 2015 to 2017, rents went up 1.4% citywide just because of Airbnb expansion. That's about $384 a year extra for the average renter. Money that could have gone to food, bills, medication, or literally anything besides helping some aspiring real estate mogul buy another ring light for his podcast. You could buy a really convincing fake degree from the president's fake university, a degree that I now realize should have said law knower man for the reference synergy. And beyond the economic effects, neighborhoods shift from being communities to tourist traps. Again, they weren't zoned for that. In Miami Beach over 1,000 police calls in 1 year connected to Airbnb addresses, including several related to violent crimes. Because people on vacation are different from people who live in a place, right? Have you seen yourself on vacation? You are a fucking monster. That's the entire point of being on vacation after all. You didn't cash in your sick days to not drink tequila at 10 a.m. on a Monday, right? You sure can. You can rim anything, in theory. This rental increase and commercialization creates something called a doom loop, like a Latvian real estate scam. Basically, it's when renters get financially locked into using Airbnb. During the height of the pandemic, amateur investors flooded into the Airbnb game, especially in small towns and rural areas, snatching up cheap properties like a kid in a candy store, except the candy is overpriced real estate and the kid has access to predatory lending. Between mid-2021 and mid-2022, the number of new hosts jumped by more than 50%. Now, the market's oversaturated. We've got too many Airbnbs and not enough guests. But prices haven't dropped because hosts are trying to cover fees and inflated mortgages. The end result is the doom loop, Richards! Independent hosts can't cut prices without losing money, so guests gravitate back to the hotels that can. It's a Groundhog Day of financial ruin. Everyone's miserable except Airbnb, which in 2023 earned nearly $5 billion, its biggest profit ever. Boy, seems like we really nailed it that first time with hotels, right? You know, how hotels were kind of the ideal version of this, and then we disrupted it to end up back where we started, but worse. And that reminds me, streaming sure sucks these days, doesn't it? Over at Amazon, you can purchase all the digital movies and music your swollen heart desires, but everything in your library is fair game for predatory and misleading practices that hide what you're actually spending money on. There's currently a lawsuit arguing that Prime Video misleads customers when it says you can buy a movie. Because you're not buying Jack Booty, which is worse than Wheeljack, but better than Gunjack. Because at least Jack Booty can't clobber you with its powerful arms. When you buy something on Prime Video, you're just licensing it. It's Jeff Bezos subletting you a DVD. The second the licensing deal changes, poof, your purchase is gone. It's the same for any streaming purchase. Last year, anime streaming service Funimation shut down and shoved everyone over to Crunchyroll. But in the process, they also nuked the digital copies of Blu-rays and DVDs customers thought they owned. So at any moment, your precious library of hentai research could suddenly vanish. And that's the through line with all of these platforms. They give you less ownership while charging you for things you can't even hold in your hand. And when you try to complain, your only recourse in most situations is frustrating interactions with chatbot support that end with us yelling, "Talk to a human!" into the void. Because that's the punctuation to all of these, something we've all dealt with more and more. Fucking bots. We're told automated support is more efficient, but what they've actually built is a recursive maze where a chatbot apologizes 300 times without ever solving your problem, like the worst Alice in Wonderland character, ironically turning you into a mad chatter. Again, I don't need to tell you how frustrating this is. But unsurprisingly, studies have shown people negatively review bots more than humans, even when the service provided was identical. A whopping 70% of users still say they'd pick a human over a chatbot, which makes sense when 60% of users say bots don't even understand what they're asking to begin with. 65% of consumers think humans are better at understanding complex problems, and 54% said humans were better at solving their problems in a single call or support session. It's just better to talk to a human being who you know understands the situation and will at least give a polite chuckle when you crack a lukewarm joke. Of course, food delivery apps are among the worst of all these, and not just because of poorly automated customer service for my misdelivered ham fries. DoorDash and Grubhub have more hidden fees than a Faustian bargain. In 2024, the FTC hit Grubhub for running what a former executive had called a pricing shell game, hiding delivery charges behind misleading labels like service fee or small order fee. These were junk fees in disguise, and Grubhub had to cough up $25 million to settle that case. And they're not alone. Uber Eats was found to have quietly marked up menu prices above what the restaurant actually charges, pocketing the difference for themselves while still charging restaurants high commissions. And in June, DoorDash got slapped by Canada's antitrust watchdog for luring customers with low prices, then slamming them with surprise fees at checkout. On top of all that, like a thin slice of tomato I absolutely did not ask for, these apps bundle fees into vague line items you have to carefully read to make sure you're not getting hit with a bag fee or something. Even when you demand a refund, which is supposed to be one of the easier processes in customer service, these apps find a way to make it everyone else's problem. Sure, you might get your money back if something goes wrong. However, the platform usually makes the restaurant pay the refund instead of covering it themselves. And in some cases, the place you thought you ordered from had no idea you were ordering. Grubhub at one point listed over 300,000 restaurants without their consent, resulting in customers ordering items that were out of stock or no longer even on the menu, and the restaurants getting blamed for Grubhub's chicanery. That's chicanery in the kitchen. Much like the hidden fees, these companies will routinely hide legalese that absolves them from all responsibility within lengthy terms of service documents that every single person on planet Earth scrolls through without reading. And it's not just because we're lazy, even though this entire video is about how we're carving ourselves up like the greed murder in Seven for the sake of not having to drive all the way to Publix for my Mike's Hard. We're not lazy. We all know the deal here. We've all accepted it blindly, and for some reason, terms of services are everywhere and impossibly long. And because no one actually reads those things, companies sneak in bizarre clauses. To prove that point, one study found that students who signed up for a fake social network with a long TOS had to agree to give the company their future firstborn children, and only a quarter of them even read it. Real-world TOS agreements haven't become that egregious yet, but they're routinely used to trick customers into granting companies privileges they are not entitled to in any way. The on-demand service Handy, which I was disappointed to learn is only a house cleaning service, once tried to make its customers pay for future tax bills if their workers were ever legally reclassified from independent contractors to employees. So if you don't read carefully, you might find yourself as a tax co-signer on a bunch of labor disputes. Which reminds me, while these apps are a nightmare for us, the customer, they are even more of a nightmare for the worker. It's their nightmare after all. We're just guest starring in them. So that's the next thing we're gonna talk about. Oh, snap! Speaking of entitlement, a drone just dropped a guy in here, he tossed a package at me, and the drone grabbed the guy and left. Oh, the future is amazing. But hey, it's finally here. God! This is not what I ordered. But it could be what you ordered. Enjoy even more commercials while I yell at a chatbot or something. I don't know.
Friends and well-wishers, welcome to Katie's Corner. It's the part of the show where we take a deep breath, slow down, maybe eat some string cheese and almonds, and think about how we can bring some mindfulness and quietude into our lives. For me, that is with the Calm app. It helps me center myself after a long day in the news field and get back in touch with my breath. Their guided meditations help me work through anxiety and stress and boost focus. Plus, their sleep stories are exactly what I need when I need to clear my head of the news and get to snoozing. Seriously though, I've been using the Calm app for a very long time. One of my favorite sleep stories is the Matthew McConaughey one. I'm like, hey, Matthew, want to read me a bedtime story? And he's like, all right. Okay. Anyway, plus, I need a distraction, so I don't eat any more string cheese and almonds. Seriously, I could do that all night. Do you want some string cheese and almonds? I have so much left over from my snack pack party. It's really just taking up too much space in my den. Anyway, okay. Calm is the #1 app for sleep and meditation, and it is here to help you feel better. I love it, and I look forward to my moments of calm every day. Even if you don't have much time, it can help you center yourself, focus, and while you're not supposed to snack while you're meditating, these SCNAs aren't going to eat themselves, you know what I'm saying? So calm your mind and change your life. Calm has an exclusive offer just for our audience. Get 40% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/more news. This is an amazing value. Go to calm.com/more news for 40% off unlimited access to Calm's entire library, including Matthew McConaughey. Calm.com/more news. Tell Calm that you heard about them from us, though. That's a really important part of this. Okay. There's a noise outside. What is that? Ooh, another snack pack delivery. Someone's playing a prank on me. That someone is myself.
Do you remember that episode of Seinfeld about the wallet? No, not the episode of The Wallet, where Jerry's dad thinks his wallet was stolen at the doctor's office. I'm talking about the season 9 episode, The Reverse Peephole, where George has a wallet that's so overstuffed with coupons and tickets and other things that he sits at an angle and gets back pain. Do you remember that? That's what happened to me. My old wallet was the size of a fly ash brick and had the texture of old sandpaper. But thank goodness I got rid of that heap and got myself a new wallet from Ridge. They're made with premium materials like aluminium, titanium, and carbon fiber. Plus, they have a simple and slim design that can hold up to 12 cards plus cash. This baby will make you so confident you'll be strutting down the street just like Kramer did wearing the Technicolor Dreamcoat in the season 7 episode, The Wigmaster. Ridge wallets come in over 50 colors and styles, and they all have RFID blocking technology, which keeps you safe from digital pickpockets. Just like in the episode... I don't think digital pickpocketing existed when they were making Seinfeld. Whatever! For a limited time, our audience gets 10% off at Ridge by using code SMN at checkout. Just head to ridge.com and use code SMN and you're all set. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. You find out in the 4th season finale that Jerry's dad's wallet was just in Jerry's couch the whole time. Sitcoms, you know? Talk to a person. Human. Cody want human. Hi, hey, okay. Hi. Welcome back from those ads. I hope they showed you all kinds of ways you can torment your fellow man by smashing that next day delivery button. Speaking of which, it's time to talk about the other side of the equation. The workers. Forced henchmen, you could say. Here in America, we don't really have any choice except to work for the bad guys. But somehow, with worse benefits than in the movies, LeFou would have presumably been invited to Gaston's forced marriage wedding, but not a single Amazon driver was granted access to Jeff Bezos' oceanside nuptials. Curious. Companies treat the humans doing the actual work behind all this convenience worse than carnival goldfish. I at least had the decency to cry when my carny fish died. R.I.P. Cody too. So just to start, many DoorDash drivers are lured in by earnings estimates that are about as honest as Elon Musk's robot demonstrations. DoorDash recently paid a $16 million settlement after the company was caught misappropriating tips, specifically by using them to subsidize base pay instead of actually giving them to the drivers. So if a driver was guaranteed $10 for a delivery and you tipped $3, DoorDash would pay the driver $7 plus your $3, meaning your tip covered part of DoorDash's contribution. You were actually tipping DoorDash, the corporation. And of course, most drivers are labeled independent contractors, which means they receive no benefits, no protections, no health care, and no guaranteed income. What might you need protections for? I don't know, the occasional attack by an angry customer wielding a tire iron because their chicken wings didn't arrive. That actually happened. Specifically, a Milwaukee driver had to cancel a delivery because her phone lost service, which angered the customer, who could still see her car on the app. And so that customer used the app to follow her home and smash up her car, resulting in $10,000 in damages and, one imagines, no vehicle to do her job with. 7 stops away. Supposedly, anyway, this dehumanizing system plays perfectly into these companies' promise of an inhuman delivery speed. We're in an on-demand economy now, baby, and we want our shit today. Between 2015 and 2017, Google searches for same-day shipping jumped 120%. But promises of speedy same-day delivery don't happen by magic. They're built on exploiting human workers, which is a kind of magic, I guess. A New York Times investigation shows that brands farm out hiring to staffing agencies to fulfill same-day shipping demands. Those agencies often recruit undocumented migrants desperate for work, but these workers are routinely abused with long hours and unsafe working conditions. Then the staffing agencies cut corners, shorting wages, skipping payroll taxes, and writing paychecks that bounce because the agency's accounts don't have the funds. And because the warehouse labor is technically being performed by employees on the staffing agency's books, the name brand companies get to dodge direct legal responsibility for any of the, let's call them employer shenanigans. Or you know what? Crimes. When workers for style companies Aloe Yoga and Bella Plus Canvas organized to demand fair pay and treatment, the brands simply switched to using a different staffing agency, leaving the original workers without a job entirely. So just zero power to the worker, opposite of power. Middlemen hiring middlemen hiring middlemen. Everyone laundering human suffering so the end user can shelter themselves in plausible deniability. So the customers are frustrated and the workers are frustrated. In other words, it's miserable people interacting with other miserable people, all trapped in an economy where every transaction has a middleman skimming off the top like a digital parasite. It's what economists call neo-feudalism. Tech platform lords collecting rent while delivery drivers serfs break their backs hauling your pad thai through traffic. But at least in old-timey feudalism, the serfs got to keep the land they lived on. Yes, that's right, I'm being nostalgic for regular feudalism. Cody, dearest news papa, you're probably saying in that weird voice of yours. Dearest news papa, there it is, that's what you sound like. Why don't workers just sue these companies into oblivion? Well, my love, a lawsuit in this space is like a coyote on rocket skates, doomed to fail and infested with desert fleas. Convenience apps like Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash collect legal troubles like they're Labubu dolls. They're constantly getting hit with lawsuits over stolen tips, wage theft, or unsafe conditions. For example, that $16 million DoorDash stolen tip settlement was split between 60,000 drivers. And while the payouts varied based on how many deliveries each one made, that's an average of $279 per worker. Uber and Lyft have thrown billions at avoiding liability because they have billions to spare. In 2024, both companies settled a lawsuit for a total of $328 million over misclassification and wage theft claims in New York. But nothing about the working conditions that resulted in those payouts actually changed. Employees are still classified as independent contractors, even when states like California try to sue on behalf of drivers. As of the writing of this episode, Smilin' Gavin Newsom signed a bill giving California's gig drivers the right to collectively bargain, meaning Uber and Lyft drivers can now negotiate wages and benefits as a group. But companies like Uber and Lyft drag out these court battles like your one weird friend who insists on finishing Monopoly. The point is, as we've discussed in the past, lawsuits are just another cost of doing business. Like, people should still try, but it's factored into their budgets, doesn't really translate into much money for the worker, and doesn't seem to change much of anything. It's weird, because we used to know how to deal with situations like this. Lawsuits and regulations used to actually matter. Back in the early 20th century, new industries held tremendous power. Railroads dictated shipping terms. Alexander Graham Bell wanted to own every phone call in America, and RCA tried to hog the radio waves. The government actually stepped in to break up monopolies and regulate rates to make sure consumers had at least some protection against the rise of corporate America. For a while, the balance kind of worked. We had strong unions, robust public agencies, and most conflicts played out in actual courts instead of arbitrations in corporate back rooms. But then, well, the 1980s rolled around. Oh God, it's him again! The freaking Kimmy Gibbler of presidents. Ronald Reagan showed up and spun the very idea of government regulation as a bad thing. Public services got sold off to the private sector, prisons, schools, even some of the damn firefighters, and along with that came the spread of arbitration as a liability loophole. Arbitration is when a matter gets settled outside of the courtroom. This allows corporations to avoid public scrutiny and class action lawsuits and implement other tactics that give them the upper hand. In 1995, the Supreme Court decided that arbitration requirements could be stuck into consumer contracts like terms of service. Translation, even if a company was breaking the law like Johnny Cage testing his might, you might still end up in arbitration instead of a courtroom. And in the decades since, the court has doubled and tripled down on arbitration as though the very concept of corporate accountability shot its parents in crime alley. The worst alley. Unless you need money. Or drugs. Buried arbitration clauses hidden within those boring walls of text you never read before hitting I agree became corporate superweapons. A few elite lawyers rewrote the rules so that what started as a statute to resolve contract disputes between companies is now a national policy stripping rights from workers and consumers, all with zero public oversight. Corporations like Amazon, Apple, and Google effectively write their own laws via terms of service. Amazon alone has 2.5 million third-party sellers who must play by its rules, pay a laundry list of fees to compete against Amazon's own products, and agree to arbitration if they want to complain. So Amazon gets to be both the referee and the player, while everyone else fights over scraps. Lyft's own 2019 public safety report admitted there were over 4,000 sexual assaults reported on its platform in just 3 years. And that's only the reported cases. A lot of those victims were forced into arbitration before they could even file a lawsuit demanding changes that should have been built into the system from the start. Thankfully, they have since ended forced arbitration agreements for sexual assault, probably because that pissed everybody off. So yeah, it's all bad, seemingly evil at times. But I guess the reason we put up with all of this and why we all haven't deleted Amazon, DoorDash, and Lyft several Lycan moon cycles ago is because they are really convenient, right? I think most people would agree that it's easier this way and hard to think about going back. We can get Taco Bell delivered now. That never used to be the case. People used to have to drunk drive for that. So I guess that is one good thing that we got rid of. And I think the big transition point was, of course, the height of the pandemic. During that time, these companies weren't just desired, but necessary, and for some, life-saving. Even now, there are people with disabilities that rely on this stuff. For the elderly, people with chronic health or mobility issues, or anyone without reliable transportation, visiting a food pantry can be very difficult. At the beginning of COVID, anti-hunger organizations worked quickly to tackle this issue, and companies like DoorDash stepped up with programs like Project Dash. By the end of 2022, more than 300 nonprofit partners were using it to deliver food to people who couldn't get it on their own. That makes a measurable difference. For instance, in Detroit, about a third of people live more than a mile from an actual grocery store. A University of Michigan study found that these grocery delivery services actually help people who've had the hardest time getting food, especially those relying on nutrition assistance or dealing with mobility issues. The point is that I don't think we should abolish these things, but try to make them better, especially for people who actually need them beyond just the convenience aspects of them. And not every convenience business is a soulless cash grab. Some of them actually solve real problems, like GoGo Grandparent, which is an on-demand service for people who can't or don't want to fiddle with a multitude of apps on a smartphone. You just call a number on a phone, which for our younger viewers is what your phone used to be for, and they will handle rides, groceries, even meals, all without downloading a single app, which is helpful if you're a senior, if you're blind, or if you just dropped your phone in an icy machine. But you may notice that even that service only exists to ease the burden of navigating all the apps. It adds a middleman to the mass of middlemen, or maybe a collection of middlemen is called a murder. Again, not saying we should abolish all of these, but I can argue that these convenience apps aren't actually that much more convenient or cheap. I mean, we all know this, right? Having Taco Bell delivered while saving you and pedestrians a highly irresponsible and illegal drunk drive, it's gonna triple what you pay, assuming you tip well, which you fucking should. Going back to that study around Detroit, the more transportation challenges their residents faced, the more likely they were to see the cost of online grocery delivery as a barrier. This was particularly true for those with significant transportation issues, as 69% of them cited cost as a major obstacle, compared to 50% of people with fewer issues and only 37% of those with no challenges. So the people who need it most can afford it the least, which is basically the American healthcare system, but for groceries. I could also argue that food is a part of healthcare, actually. Water too, but that's another episode. And a survey by the American Foundation for the Blind found that many blind or low vision users were locked out of these benefits because the apps themselves weren't accessible, thanks to design choices that didn't account for disabilities. In other words, these apps would be good for people with disabilities or a lack of transportation if they were actually made for those people, but they aren't. There's a fundamental problem with all these so-called convenience apps. You can never get something cheap, fast, and good. You only ever get maybe two. Food delivery apps, fast and decent, but outrageously expensive. Amazon is fast and cheap, but there's no oversight, so you could end up with something wildly different than what you thought you ordered. Also, its very existence is a blight on the human world, which is a bit of a setback. That's the dirty secret. Convenience always starts great until reality sets in. For instance, let's go back to streaming. Netflix was once the golden child, no doubt offering the golden child. In 2008, it cost a few bucks a month for no commercials and deals with all the big studios, so you had brand new blockbusters right next to old classics. They didn't even care if you shared your password. Over time, people cut cable for Netflix, which inspired 10 more streaming apps to sprout up. Amazon threw in Prime Video as a free bonus, And suddenly, every company was clawing for screen space. Studios wanted their own slice of streaming pie, which is how we got Peacock, Disney Plus, HBO Max, Max HBO, Paramount Plus, and so on. Quibi was there. Briefly. And throughout all this time, Netflix kept changing the deal. 2011 saw them change pricing so streaming and getting physical DVDs were separate tiers. In 2014, they raised the price by another $2 a month. After all, since everyone was competing, holding on to their IP, Netflix has to start making original shows too. Fast forward to 2025, and Netflix's basic plan has been completely phased out. Their standard plan that started in 2013 at $9.99 is now $17.99. Their premium plan also climbed from $11.99 to $24.99. Or if you'd like, you can pay $7.99 for the pleasure of their standard with ads, which comes to around 5 minutes of ads per hour. Prime Video is still technically included with Prime, but now you get ads unless you cough up extra for ad-free viewing. Hulu, Disney Plus, and HBO have all implemented similar tiers where the privilege of not watching commercials costs more collectively than cable ever did. Because movies and TV cost money to make. These companies promised way more than they could deliver. You simply can't offer people hundreds of movies for a few bucks. That was never gonna happen. They basically lied to disrupt an entire functioning industry and replaced it with something worse. And the illusions are only getting bolder. The next frontier of easy and convenient is AI. Pitched by every tech company as the ultimate time saver. We got an AI actress now. Entire movies will be AI, and it won't cost a thing, except for all the money it'll cost, if only in the lawsuits. It's just unsustainable. We have companies who want to cut out workers entirely, and customers who want really, really convenient services for cheap and also good. You see how none of that really meshes? You know, at least until robots, I guess. And then we won't have to pay them, which will be good because no one will have money because the robots took the jobs. Again, none of it really meshes. The pieces don't really fit together. It's weird to just say, we shouldn't do a lot of this, but we shouldn't do a lot of this. Because there are consequences beyond what we've already talked about. Consequences to our society that are perhaps negative. Hold that thought. Finally, a person. Oh my God. Hi, this is Cody, the man. I'm the human man. I'm just gonna take this. Who knows when I'll get to talk to another person again. I'm so glad you're a person. I'm yelling, but please stay on the line. Enjoy these ads, which are also automated. I have no idea what they're gonna be. No, you didn't hang up. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm still speaking very loudly. I'm so excited.
If you've ever been in the market for a new home, you know home shopping can be a lot. There's so much you don't know and so much you need to know. What are the neighborhoods like? What are the schools like? Who is the agent and who knows the listing or neighborhood best? And why can't all this information just be in one place? Well, now it is on Homes.com. They've got everything you need to know about the listing itself. But even better, they've got comprehensive neighborhood guides and detailed reports about local schools, and their agent directory helps you see the agent's current listings and sales history. Homes.com collaboration tools make it easier than ever to share all this information with your family. It's a whole cul-de-sac of home shopping information, all at your fingertips. Homes.com. We've done your homework.
Yeah, it's October, and you know what that means. Viggo Mortensen's birthday. And once you're done celebrating that, Pluto TV has all the scares, all for free, with ghoulish horror movies, some of which are Viggo related, like Paranormal Activity, The Ring, Scream, Viggo the Carpathian Does Dallas, A Perfect Mortar. You know he actually broke 2 toes kicking the orc helmet, the movie. 28 Days Later, not 28 Days, starring Sandra Bullock and Viggo Mortensen. The Appaloosa Apparition, A Dangerous Method of Doom. Eastern Promises of Doom. A History of Violence of Doom. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Scary Green Book. And From Dusk Till Dawn. Get all the scares out before November when it gets even spookier with Joel McHale's birthday. Woo! Pluto TV. Stream now. Pay never? That's weird. Someone must have thrown my phone on the floor and stepped on it a bunch of times. Hi again. Just got off the phone with the customer service person who assured me that they do not care whether I live or die, which I totally get. So we've been talking about the convenience app industry, like Ubers and Lyfts and Netflix and Amazons and the others, and how they aren't really very cheap or really that convenient. Like, do we really need to pay double to have a miserable person bring us the wrong order from Chili's? I mean, I do, but does everybody? I don't know. The point here isn't to abolish this stuff or refuse technological progress. But if we're paying a lot for all of it, can't that money go to the workers or to make them good? Ultimately, that's the problem. These apps, which, as we keep saying, are middlemen with zero oversight or accountability, they simply don't deserve to take the majority of the money we're paying them. Jeff Bezos should not be a zillionaire for simply hosting other people's stores on his webpage. He runs a shipping logistics company, and that's not nothing. But it's not going to space money. The creator of those Squid Games should not be struggling to get paid. Why does Netflix need that money? So they can afford to put out 6 episodes of Stranger Things every 4 years? There's clearly an imbalance between the workers and the corporations and the customers, where these services only really serve the executives. And that's a whole other thing I can't really solve here, at least not without renting a bunch of pitchforks. I hear there's a good app for that though. It's called Fork. Like a 4 and then a K. But even if we did solve all the legal and ethical problems with these apps, we really need to ask ourselves if these conveniences are something we actually should have and use all the time. I don't want to sound like an old guy because I'm very young and spry, but we're so goddamn isolated from each other. And one of the things these apps do that we don't really think about enough is create this weird digital wall between workers and customers, more than the wall we already had. Like, fast food joints figured out decades ago that they could shove a speaker box between you and the cashier, both for the sake of efficiency and so you don't have to look them in the eye while you order the family bundle with extra slop for just yourself. But the apps have perfected it so that the dehumanization is now total. Your delivery driver is just a dot on a map. If your order's wrong, you don't talk to a person. You tap a little report button in the app. You don't even have to see the human being you are complaining about. You go to an Airbnb, and most of the time, the owner isn't even there. You just open a lockbox. It's class isolation, right? These apps don't just offer convenience, but an isolation from workers. You can have someone buy your groceries and leave them at your door without ever speaking to them. Tip them a few measly bucks without seeing the sadness on their face. If you think they did something wrong, well, you can use your Ring camera to spy on and report them or turn them into content. Get a person fired without them ever seeing your face, without exchanging a single word with them. Miserable people interacting with other miserable people with the added bonus of total dehumanization thanks to never having to see or speak to them. All in the name of this futurist convenience that isn't really that convenient, and most importantly, not really that futuristic either. You ever hear of an automat? It was a wall of doors where you'd put in coins and could take out a meal. It was in the movie Dark City. You love that movie. You love Dark City. They sort of died out in part because the technology at the time couldn't adjust to price changes. But now that everything is digital, some people are bringing it back.
But this new version doesn't take coins. Your order is placed and paid for on your smartphone. A text notifies you when it's ready.
Scan your phone.
Scan it right there.
Yep, it'll tell you which locker to go to.
And then the
It's
door
number
opens.
6.
The thing about the automat is that it was always a gimmick to create the illusion of the future, when the reality is that there were a bunch of people behind that wall constantly stocking those cubbies. And that is exactly what these new automats are too.
Just 3 employees can serve 300 people.
Wow, just 3 employees to serve 300 people. I wonder who's benefiting from that. See, that's the thing. It's all just an automat. Everything we've talked about. It's the illusion of an advanced Jetsons future that's actually just a bunch of low-paid people behind the scenes. Fewer workers handling more people at the cost of the worker. And it's all being spearheaded by people like Elon Musk, a guy who compares human beings to NPCs in a video game. You know, they're all the people you run over with minivans in GTA. And if Musk sees people as empty shells programmed to populate a world built for him, how do you think he views the workers making it all run? At a We Robot event, Musk showed off his Tesla Optimus robot, supposedly demonstrating advanced AI capabilities like chatting with guests, pouring drinks, and dancing. But the robots were being remotely controlled by Musk's employees the entire time. In one video, the guy behind an Optimus robot humorously admitted it was assisted by a human and not fully autonomous. But Tesla didn't openly disclose this during Musk's presentation. Again, automats. The human workers were effectively invisible, serving as the engine under the hood of Musk's self-driving robot. They weren't even worth a mention because, again, to him, they're just NPCs. Like most things Musk invents, he didn't actually come up with this grift. He can't even grift originally. It's basically a version of the Mechanical Turk. Back in the 1770s, Wolfgang von Kempelen made a splash with a chess automaton that could play an entire game of chess while dressed like a German maniac. He'd even pop it open to show off its mechanical innards. The only thing was, the Mechanical Turk was just a guy in a robot costume. Cut to now, and that hasn't really changed. Amazon actually runs a platform with the same name. Amazon's Mechanical Turk, which launched in 2005 and lets people and companies farm out tiny online tasks that actually require human judgment. And the whole system is designed to mimic artificial intelligence so you don't have to think about the human workers you are exploiting. Early on, Jeff Bezos even referred to the dehumanized workers behind the scenes as artificial intelligence. The basic idea is that a user can post a task to mTurk and then set a price for that task, sometimes as low as 1 cent. Then workers get to decide which tasks to accept, many of which are incredibly fucked up. 5 years ago, Gizmodo surveyed over 1,000 workers about being paid less than $1 to watch videos of botched surgeries, mail their underwear, take photos of their feet, or even draw pictures of their genitals. One worker claimed they were paid 50 cents to remember the most painful memory of their lives, adding, "It fucked me up for the entire day." In some cases, the workers don't get paid at all. Requesters can reject work for basically no reason and still keep the data, leaving workers screwed. One person said they completed 200 microjobs on mTurk, only to have them all mass rejected, tanking their approval rating and future potential earnings. Some of the Gizmodo survey respondents called mTurk a godsend because they were disabled or laid off and couldn't hold a traditional job. But even the positive stories came with qualifiers. As one worker said, "I know I'm not making a livable wage doing this, but that's okay. It's a heck of a lot better than nothing." All right, that's another great company slogan. And, of course, the AI era is no different. Now, instead of paying people pennies to draw dicks for research, Silicon Valley is hiring armies of invisible workers to make their AIs look like magic. Google has been quietly hiring thousands of people to moderate and correct its AI output, which often involves drinking the worst swill the internet has to offer. This includes reviewing medical misinformation hallucinated by Google's Gemini or prompts for hardcore porn. All of this so you never see a Lovecraftian star spawn when you ask Gemini about pizza toppings. The deadlines are brutal, the pay is low, and the workers themselves say the pressure leaves them anxious and disillusioned at best and downright traumatized at worst. And as you may have guessed, if you've been following along at home with your Cody rings, these workers aren't Google employees reaping the benefits that come with employment at a giant tech company. They're independent contractors employed through product engineering firms whose entire job is to make sure stuff like Google's AI chatbot work as intended. OpenAI does a similar thing with ChatGPT, using workers in Kenya who get $2 an hour to make sure the AI doesn't make you a cursed greeting card like the absolutely real Batman and Robin rape fantasy that some unfortunate person was paid far too little to grade. In other words, much of the learning these programs do is actually performed by underpaid humans. It's all still a guy dressed like a chess robot. As one researcher put it, AI isn't magic, it's a pyramid scheme of human labor. At the top, you have billionaires boasting about their robots. At the bottom, you have an underpaid workforce getting PTSD from dealing with images of torture, hate speech, and sexual violence until the output looks good enough for a Coke commercial. Side note, Coca-Cola's current slogan is literally real magic. In other words, it's, spoilers, Snowpiercer. Little hands in the machine. Congratulations, society, you did a Snowpiercer. What we're actually talking about in all of this is an industry that's automated humans like they were cogs. That's actually it. All these apps serve the same way as an automat, a wall between the customer and the scores of miserable people being put on these forced loops of labor. It's that tweet about a Rube Goldberg of human suffering. That's really what we've created. People in warehouses running around to pack boxes to get on a truck where a driver speeds off among the many other drivers all getting your shit to you while you watch on a little screen as if it's all happening in this magical, contrapulous Willy Wonka world. Except it's not. The robots and drones that were supposed to be doing this stuff haven't been invented yet. So in the meantime, we're just using poor people as a placeholder, or Oompa Loompas actually. I guess it is just like Willy Wonka. The point is, what the fuck? Just a suggestion, but maybe we don't get to pretend the world is automated until we actually automate it. Again, not saying we have to abolish all of this stuff, but people aren't robots, so let's not treat them that way, no matter how convenient it feels to us. The cost is not worth it. Oh, hell yeah! It was all worth it! It's finally arrived! Yes! Oh, yeah! Oh my gosh. Look at that! Oh! Maybe the future is so bright we gotta be wearing shades. You know what? I'm actually feeling pretty inspired. I think this calls for a Shody tune. Hey, AI, write an inspirational song about my misdelivered ham fries. A good song. Prompt equals ham fries. Good song. Best song. Not too long. King Friday. Yeah, King Friday. King Friday with large breasts and Darth Vader as a bird. Can you even imagine that world? He'd say things like, Mallard Finch beak with you, or I'm altering the deal. Osprey, I don't foul turkey it any feather. Yeah. I find your lack of feather chirpwing. No, I'm your feather. Sure seems like there's a lot of feather stuff that's easy, I guess. Okay, here's some tune. Okay, well, just roll the prompter back to where it says song about my misdelivered ham fries. A good song. Prompt equals ham fries. Good song. Best song. Not too long. King Friday, yeah, King Friday. King Friday with large breasts and Darth Vader as a bird.
Can you even imagine that world? He'd say things like, Mallard, Finch beak with you. Or, I'm altering the deal. Osprey, I don't falter-key at any feather, yeah. I find your lack of feather dischirping. No, I am your feather. It sure seems like there's a lot of feather stuff that's easy, I guess. Okay, here's some Take that, you piece of shit!
Well, that was weird. Thanks for watching. Not the whole episode. The whole episode was like, it was coherent and stuff, but thanks for sticking around for that. Look at you watching this and liking and subscribing. So thank you so much for doing that. And check out our podcast, Even More News. It's on this channel twice a week. It's out there on podcast land twice a week. You can listen to this show, Some More News, as a podcast. You can do so many things. Oh, you can do so much with your time. But most importantly, you can go to patreon.com/somemorenews. That's where our Patreon is. We've also got merch. You saw it in the episode. Oh my God, you can see it even more now. It's the shirt from the episode. It's not the only shirt we have. So, and if it were, well, that would be a problem, actually. We would want to get more stuff. I think this is it.